Harry Thomas. Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. Now, if you thought Prisoner of Azkaban was a big change in the Harry Potter series, boy, you haven't seen nothing yet. Goblet of Fire was the first Harry Potter movie to get a PG-13 rating in the US and a 12A rating in the UK. That shocked audiences at the time. Well, it was appropriate due to that this film is a lot darker, a lot scarier, a lot more complex and adult than the previous three ever were. Prisoner of Azkaban made the series darker, but this movie took the darkness to the whole new level. It literally, legitimately frightened me as a kid so much that my mum wouldn't even let me watch this movie until I was 12. That was back when P12A ratings actually meant something. And and surprisingly, Alfonso Cuarón, after the success with The Prisoner of Azkaban, did not return to direct Goblet of Fire. Instead, he was replaced by the first British director of this series, Mike Newell. Not only but because Goblet of Fire was the first book in the series that was literally this big and never ending. It was the first of the movie adaptations to be considered for a two-film adaptation. But thankfully, they decided eventually that just one film would serve the story best. And the people complaining about this movie not being two movies just because they wanted it to be as faithful to the book as it could, well, it doesn't have to be a complete cut out copy of the book, like I said before. Just splitting it into two parts so it can be more faithful to of the book to satisfy the book fans is completely pointless. It's a different medium. It's a movie franchise, and the book of the Goblet of Fire I thought was way too long. There was so much unnecessary subplots. Yes, it is very detailed and added something more to the story, but a lot of the things in there just weren't very necessary. You can't deny that this installment had no excuse for being one movie. It is an absolute disgraceful adaptation of this brilliant, perfect book. It should have clearly have been two movies, like they did with Deathly Hallows. Then it could have done the Quidditch match, the subplot with the house elves could have been included, and we could have even seen those great patterns in the maze. Oh, you again. I thought you were gone. Look, Deathly Hallows had a perfectly justified reason for being two movies. It worked as a two-film adaptation, but not Goblet of Fire. Imagine Goblet of Fire Part 1 and Part 2. That would have been so awkward. You should and Order of the Phoenix Part 1 and Part 2, and what's next? Half-Blood Prince Part 1 and Part 2. Yeah, it just would not have worked. It would have been too many movies for the Jaggle just for being faithful to the fans. No, this is a movie franchise and it shall be judged as a movie. It is not the book, and if you can't deal with that, then there's the door. So the Goblet of Fire movie opens with a a very horrifying opening that makes you realise this is not a kids franchise anymore, with the caretaker walking up to the Riddle house and he sees baby Voldemort discussing with Wormtail and Barty Crouch Jr., played by David Tennant, and Nagini, their snake, discussing a plan to get Harry, and then we see Frank Grimes being brutally murdered by Voldemort, to which it cuts back to Harry with the Weasleys. Now, this is the first Harry Potter movie not to open on Privet Drive with the Dursleys, and I like that. It's a different opening. It's refreshing that Harry's in the care of better people this time, and so Harry, Hermione, and Ron, Arthur Weasley, and Amos Diggory and his son Cedric Diggory, played by Robert Pattinson, go off to the Quidditch World Cup, and they live in this awesome tent, which why couldn't Hermione have packed that in the Deathly Hallows? Oh well. And so they get to the Quidditch match, and I know a lot of people are beyond pissed off that they cut out the Quidditch match, but I don't mind. Yeah, it would have been a great spectacle to see, but is it really necessary to the plot? Not really. What's needed is that the Death Eaters attack the cup and Barty Crouch Jr. casts a dark mark into the sky. That's all we needed to see. And this is, of course, a very special year at Hogwarts because it's not just another boring school year. This is the year where Hogwarts will play host to the Triwizard Tournament, which I freaking love. And seeing the Beauxbatons and Domestrang come in, it was wonderful. It was such a great spectacle. And it was great that we got to learn and see other schools as well as just Hogwarts. I know people complain about why are the Beauxbaton students all girls and why are the Domestrang all guys. But does it really matter? I mean, Beauxbaton's champion is a girl and the Domestrang champion is a guy anyway, so I think it's pretty convenient. And also, uh, the rules are at the tournament, any student who's 17 or over must write their name on a piece of parchment and place it in the Goblet of Fire. And then we get introduced to the new Defence Against the Dark Arts teacher and a major new character, Mad Eye Moody, played fantastically by Brendan Gleeson. Now, in this lesson, I've always wondered, how did Mad Eye not get sent to Azkaban? He used all 3 unforgivable curses in a classroom in front of 14-year-olds, and yet if you even used one of these curses, the one-way ticket to Azkaban, yet he used all 3, yet got completely let off the hook. What the hell? And this is also the first movie where we learn more about Voldemort and his followers, the Death Eaters, of course, and that really shows, showing, that did a brilliant job of showing the tonal change in this franchise, that there are actually killing spells and torture spells. The Wizarding World is not as happy-go-lucky as it was in the first 2 anymore. It's actually a very dark. And of course, after the 3 champions are selected, Cedric, Fleur and Crumb, Harry's name unexpectedly emerges and everyone all of a sudden hates Harry. They're like, you cheater, you're not even 17 yet, how the hell did you do that? When of course he didn't put his name in. And there's a great mystery of who put Harry's name in, which kept me gripped and wanting to find out. And the actual reveal in the end shocked me and made perfect sense. But we'll get to that later. After that, Harry and Ron have this very awkward fallout, and I'm like, Ron, why are you being such a dick? Harry said he didn't put his name in, he's trying to make amends, but Ron's just like, piss off. Oh, I'm like, whoa, they're using language like that in a Harry Potter movie, which shows how these movies are maturing. And also, another new character comes in, Rita Skeeter, played wonderfully by Miranda Richardson, and she's basically an interviewer from the Daily Prophet, and she's asking Harry how he did put his name in, and she keeps writing these articles that really piss everyone off. But of course, there's a lot more to her in the book than there is in the film. But anyway, as for the 3 Triwizard tasks themselves, they're all brilliant, they're all spectacular. I know people are underwhelmed by them because how they're so different from the book and are overly spectacleized, but I don't agree with you guys. Sorry, I have to side with the film. They portrayed them much better in the film. I mean the dragon task being the best. It was in the book, of course, Harry just stays in the arena and casts his broom and get the egg. It's pretty underwhelming, but here Harry actually flies out of the arena with the dragon chasing him. It was just epic. It was exhilarating. There's so much more tension there. And the lake task was phenomenal. David Heyman said the lake task was the biggest challenge for the film, and it was. It is a landmark achievement in visual effects, and Dan had to take a lot of diving practice, and he did it perfectly. I mean, I love the mermaids, the Grindylows, and Harry is very brave to save not just Ron, but Fleur's little sister as well, to which he got a lucky kiss from her. And and the maze, the 3rd and final task, is by far the darkest and creepiest of them all. It is such an original idea to have the maze itself being the enemy. I'm glad they cut out all the spinks and nonsense from the book. That was not necessary whatsoever. Just people complain that the maze is not threatening because it's just twigs and bushes. Well, if you were in a maze that was alive and could eat you at any time, how is that not intimidating? And the Yule Ball, of course, I I love the Yule Ball. I mean, there's a lot more romance and teenage relationships, which perfectly shows how they are not kids anymore. How they're just and romance does blossom when you get to that age. Particularly between Ron and Hermione. Ron's, of course, jealous of Victor Crumb for having a big crush on Hermione, and Harry, of course, loves Cho, but sadly, Cedric is already with Cho, and the Yule Ball itself is a beautiful set, where they decorate the Great Hall with all that ice. It's beautiful, and I love that band at the end where they sing "Shake your body like a hairy troll, spin around like a crazy elf, dance like a hippogriff." Oh, I was dancing along. That was so much fun. While some may disagree, that's why Mike Newell is a great director for this movie, because he really captures the teenage relationships and of course where the big reveal, what the movie's been leading up to, the return of Lord Voldemort. Now, of course, Cedric sadly gets killed, and it's the first Harry Potter movie to have a sad ending where someone dies. And when they see Cedric's dead body after Harry escapes the graveyard, you're like, oh my gosh, this is war now. People are really gonna die. Voldemort's resurrection, where they get Harry's blood and comes out of the cauldron. Oh, that terror absolutely frightened me. I considered not watching it anymore after that. I really did. I can see my mum didn't want me to watch it until I was 12. And when people heard Ralph Fiennes was playing Voldemort, they were like, seriously, are you crazy? But when they saw him, they were like, wow, holy crap, but this guy is perfect as Voldemort. And yeah, he is. And I love the special effect of his nose that looks like this. It looks so natural. Where they give him a snake nose, it doesn't even look CGI. And of course, the big reveal: Mad Eye was the one that put Harry's name in the goblet, and the one who helped him win the Triwizard Tournament. But he's not actually Mad Eye. He's been drinking Polyjuice Potion all this time, and he turns out to be the Death Eater, Barty Crouch Jr., the son of Minister Barty Crouch. Now, this was such a shocking reveal, but I wondered, it was actually pretty obvious. I mean, how did nobody figure it out? He didn't act like Mad Eye at all when he was in disguise. He used 3 unforgivable curses in a classroom, used transfiguration on a student, and they've only just figured it out now. But anyway, and then we get Cedric's funeral, and it's really sad. I mean, this is the first Harry Potter film to end with a funeral. God, they realise shit is gonna go down now. This is war. The world is maturing as we are maturing. This is really the first Harry Potter ending to have such a tragic ending. I mean, which shows how dark this franchise is getting. Prisoner of Azkaban was dark, but it still had a happy ending. This has a full-on sad ending, and the threat of war. And Dumbledore then tells Harry dark and difficult times lie ahead, and Hermione's like, everything's going to change now, and they both couldn't have been more right. So The Goblet of Fire is hands down, I think, one of the best Harry Potter movies, and fans of the book, of course, hate this movie, but I'm not a book fan particularly. I'm a movie fan, and I love it. This was made for me. I am so glad that this movie got as dark as it did, because that ending was a perfect, brilliant setup for Order of the Phoenix. I'm like, wow, this franchise is getting brilliant now. I cannot wait to see where it goes and how it ends. And this movie, it's much better than the book. The book, of course, way too long. Even J.K. Rowling admitted Goblet and Fire, Order of the Phoenix books were a little long, and then people who hate this movie, there's a lot to love it. Brendan Gleeson, awesome as Mad Eye Moody. The Triwizard Tournament was a delight to see on the big screen. The darker tone works even better here than it did in Prisoner of Azkaban, because we're more used to it. Voldemort was perfect as Ralph Fiennes. We got to see great new characters, and yeah, it's an all-around brilliant setup for the better movies that were to come. And of course, I really like Patrick Doyle's score. Of course, he had a hard act to follow, replacing John Williams, but he did a great job. I give Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire 5 stars out of
5.
Well, what do you guys think of the Goblets of Fire? Whatever you think, comment down below. Let me know. Please like this video and subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you next time.